evening and welcome to live coverage of the third round of the RWB International Constructors Championship. I'm Rob Lomas and I'll be taking you through the race this afternoon here at Misano in Italy. Currently just in the last 90 seconds or so of qualifying as we see Sergio Lemke going up into fourth place for now. James Lacey, Sam Kruger ahead of him. There's Damien Law in the 26th placed car at the moment on his qualifying lap right now. Now we're looking at Eddie Warden in the Lamborghini. A lot of drivers leaving it quite late here at Misano. I'm wondering just how many drivers are going to show up as having not set a lap time, because Misano is one of those circuits where you've got to be absolutely on the edge with regards to track limits in order to get a good lap time. And if you take it quite steadily on the track limits side of things, which Josh Alexander is doing the exact opposite of, well and truly pushing it to the limit there in the Retronic Racing Porsche. But if you take it a bit too steadily with regards to track limits, you're not going to be able to get much of a lap time around here. Tim Tay having nice cuts there, running absolutely perfectly wide there onto the back straight. Heading hard on the brakes now for the Curva Quascia. And now heading up towards Curva Tremonto. Very tricky double apex turn that leads onto this long, fast run at the back of the course. So flat through Curvone. Now we're looking at Mo Plate, who's just putting a blisteringly quick lap time to go second fastest. Only to go down to third fastest because Eddie Warden's gone even quicker than James Lacey in the 997 Porsche. We're still looking at Mo Plate and his Ferrari 488 there in the pits at the moment. We'll keep an eye on things there. Damien Lowe is up into 15th place in the Mercedes. Good qualifying session from the Singaporean driver. Just waiting on the last few drives to cross the line now. And Jack Alexander, right at the very end of the session, goes fastest of anyone, and by some margin as well. 0.6 of a second. Absolutely phenomenal lap there by Jack. Talk about one way of showing how quick you are. Getting pole position by a couple of tenths is one thing in a field as good as this. Getting it pole by 0.6 though is absolutely phenomenal driving indeed. Well done to Jack, the championship leader at the moment, by virtue of having won the opening 2 rounds of the season. Crawford Brown is in second place in the standings, just ahead of Radek Schuller. Crawford in the Lexus, Radek in the McLaren. Both level on points after a second and third apiece. We'll do a quick run down through the grid for you in a sec. It's still Audi leading the manufacturer standings ahead of Nissan, with Porsche in third, Lexus fourth, BMW fifth, Mercedes sixth, Lamborghini seventh, Ferrari eighth, McLaren ninth, Bentley 10th, Aston Martin 11th, and Jaguar down in 12th place. We're currently looking at Simon Tribeck's car at the moment. I can see Jack Alexander, Eddie Warden on the front row. Mo Plate is there. There's James Lacey's Porsche as well on row 2. Then we have the first of the Mercedes cars, which I believe is Sam Kruger. And then alongside him is Marco Badowski in the Bentley. Sergio Lemke is in 7th place ahead of Hugo Gomez in the BMW. And alongside Gomez is another BMW, this time driven by Nathaniel Shirley, with Debug alongside him, rounding out the top 10. Kozłowski is in 11th place for Nissan, ahead of Jakob Tarantino in the Ferrari, and then it's Magnus Dahlgren in the Audi, ahead of Harry Hotti in the Lamborghini. Xavier Eugeni is in 15th place, having somehow managed to get the Jaguar tamed around the many twists and turns here. Alongside him is Damien Lowe. Then it's Birch and Atkinson on row 9 for Nissan, and rounding out the top 20 is Mad Al in the Aston Martin and Simon Trebek in the Bentley. Muzjewski is in 21st place for McLaren ahead of Gilbert Wood in the Lamborghini, and then it's Reitzmer in the Nissan in 23rd place. Sorry, excuse me a sec, I'm just getting the rest of the little bit more of the list up. Then it's Kostadinov in 24th, Minga in 25th. They were the only drivers to set a valid lap time. And then you have some really quick drivers down here. Crawford Brown in 26th, Martin Chafer in 27th, and Billy Hutchinson in 28th. Unfortunately, that's as far as I know of on the grid. Been a lot of driver changes heading into this weekend. You've got Matt Sherblum having to sit out the rest of the season following shoulder surgery. And Kai Banks is also sitting out the rest of the season as well. And best wishes from all of us at RWB International to Kai and to Matt. Meanwhile, the field coming through the final corner now. They're supposed to be 2x2. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. The races go. And heading into the first chicane now. Big pinch point here, trying to go 3 wide. From what we can see here, everyone just about makes it through quite cleanly. And heading around turn 3 now. Still no sign of any yellow flags at the moment. Oh, it was a bit of contact there, I think, from Craig Gilbert Wood in the Lamborghini, hitting one of the Nissans. There's I think that's one of the Bentleys off there in the as well. We'll have a look to see who that is in a sec. But from what I can see, Debug is still showing as being in 10th place. Him currently looking at Hugo Gomez at the moment, battling away. Speak of the devil, with Debug. He's got another BMW right in front of him. There's Debug, has a look up the inside into Tremonto. And is he going to be able to get the move done? You can see Badowski's car there, just in front. Not quite able to get it done is Debug, but he's going to get a good slipstream. BMW and the Bentley, both very, very big cars in terms of their physical size, so you should be able to get a decent slipstream. Still, Alexander, Warden, Lacey, Plate, Kruger, Badowski, Lenka, Shirley, Gomez, Debug. That's your top 10. Kajowski 11th, Tarantino 3rd, Dahlgren in 13th, excuse me, Low 14th. Then you've got the KOTP team running the Nissans of Atkinson, Reitzman and Birch. Then Trebek is down in 18th. Then it's Crawford Brown, who's made a good start, made up a few places. Then Craig Gilbert Wood, Mad Al, Mizjewski in 22nd, Martin Chafer in 23rd. Still remains to be seen who was involved in the opening lap incidents. No doubt they'll be looked at. Currently on board with Adam Kozłowski in the Nissan GTR. It's not the most nimble car on the field, but you'd imagine the big Nissan and some of the other front engine cars would be very strong around here, because you can really hammer them over the curbs, and that does seem to correlate very nicely indeed with what we're seeing so far. It's still the Porsche Lamborghini Porsche up front. Currently looking at Sam Kruger in 5th place. Now we're looking at Dan Birch in 17th place in the Nissan. Just been passed by Crawford Brown. He's got one of the Bentleys right behind him. I think that's Trebek. Indeed it is. It's going to have a go at the inside. Brown there getting past the Nissan just ahead of him, the 121 car, which I believe is that of Reitzmer. Indeed it is. Giorgio Minja in the Mercedes makes up another position there as Harry Hottie goes a little bit wide once more. In fact, I think Hottie was the driver who was involved in the incidents at the start, so was Eugenie. So that checks out there. There's Eugenie in the big Jaguar. You can see Billy Hutchinson in the Porsche there. Now looking at Martin Schaefer in the Ferrari on home soil. He's got the, and we're now, I was going to say he's got another driver in close company. Now we're looking at the 919 Nissan of Adam Rosetsky. Now we're looking at James Lacey in the Porsche, as we see Lacey and Emo Plate battling for position. Now we're back to the battle for 11th place between between this and the Ferrari. Now we're looking at Damien Lowe versus Crawford Brown versus Atkinson. Currently looks as if Brown having to back out somewhat there on the inside. Lowe still on the outside. The Nissan GTR just able to pull away a little bit there down the straight. Lowe is going to turn. He's got Crawford Brown on the inside. Quite a tricky corner coming up. Both just about able to hold on, but Brown going to be able to sneak up the inside there at the third to last corner. Coming up into the penultimate corner now. Just a mere lift in a modern GT3 car. And now heading into the final corner, which is a medium speed left-hander, although back in the day, that used to be turn one. Back when the circuit ran anti-clockwise, or indeed, sorry, it was still clockwise, excuse me, it was just the they were going in the opposite direction. And it was also a lot faster, that corner as well. Still with Damien Lowe, he's got two Nissans of Wrightsman Birch and Tribex Bentley all right there with him for company. Misano, not the most popular track in ACC, which is why I think the entry list is a little bit smaller this week, owing to the fact that people don't want to try driving it, which is a bit of a shame because there's nothing wrong with the circuit at all. In fact, once you get used to it, I think it's actually personally quite a fun circuit. So see one of the Audis having a little look there up in front of Crawford Brown. That's Dahlgren on Terratino. And we're still looking at Dan Birch in the Nissan, coming round the back end of the circuit now towards the pits. Coming through this kink here, now into the final corner. Birch, maybe running a little bit wide there. Not the tidiest of entries into the corner, and that's allowed Tribeck to really catch up. So Tribeck is going to try and have a run on Birch down the pit straight. Tribeck going to have to go the long way round. Very close indeed between the pair of them. This is allowing Martin Schaefer to close up on things as well. So still, and here's James Lacey still battling away with Emo Plate for third place. Lacey just pulling away a little bit. You come into Tremonto now. Very tricky because you've got to really have to trail brake through that corner, as it's quite a difficult braking zone indeed. Alexander still with the fastest lap of the race at the moment. Got a battle still raging away here. They head through the opening section. The pit window is now open. Of course, if you're new to the Constructors' Championship, the rules are you have to make 2 mandatory pit stops during the course of the race. So whether you pit now, try and get both of them out of the way, pit later, as we see Debug right on cue, actually. Oh, sorry, Lemke, excuse me, as well, I believe. And there's a Tarantino as well in the Ferrari, all into the pits to make an early first pit stop. In fact, there's quite a few drivers in there. Damien Lowe as well, Dan Birch. all in for their first pit stop, so they're going to drop down the order, but in the hope of maybe having some clear track to play with as well. So should be interesting to see how this plays out. Heading down the back straight now. There was an incident in the Blancpain Endurance Series on the run-up to this corner a few years ago. Now, it was quite a few years ago, actually, because Lawrence Vanthoor was still driving for WRT, the Audi team, in real life, and he was involved in a collision with another driver that sent him off the circuit and had an absolute monster of an accident. Actually took the engine clean out the back of the car. I remember seeing a photograph of it in Autosport magazine at the time, and he was able to recover from it, managed to climb out the car by himself, and was on the mend and back behind the wheel again the following season. There's Crawford Brown heading into the pits, having made a very good start indeed, up into 11th place at the time. So good start from Crawford as he aims to put some space between himself and Radek in the standings. There's Marco Badowski now battling away with Nathaniel Shirley as both of them are trying to catch Sam Kruger in the Mercedes. Kruger stands a chance of moving into top 3 in the championship, depending on how things are going here. And if he has a clean race from here on in, so could be one to keep an eye on. The Mercedes doing very well indeed so far in this race. Still looking at this battle between Kruger, Badowski and Shirley. They head down the back of the circuit now. Towards the Curva del Caro. So we now look at Mad Al heading onto this long run down the back of the circuit here towards Cavone, as Tarantino has just made his second pit stop as well, so already going for the get the pit stops out the way early on and absolutely floor it approach for the rest of the race. Heading out to Curva del Caro now through this little kink here and into the Curva Misano to end the lap is Mad Al, pulling away a little bit there as well from the drivers behind him. So Mad Al doing a very good job indeed. Heading into the Variante del Parco. And now we look at Reitzma in the Nissan. He's got a Martin Chafer. They're going right up the inside of him. Chafer getting the move done there at Curva del Rio. Very opportunistic bit of driving there by Chafer. Giorgio Minda comes into the pits. And that means that Simon Tribeck might be having a little look up the inside here as well into Curva Quasia. And indeed, he does get the position as well. So Tribeck now up into 13th place, just ahead of Reitzma. Heading towards the Curva Tramonto once more. And very, very quick section of the track this as well. Number of drivers made their first pit stops already. Xavier Eugeni, I think, might be the highest placed. Actually, I stand corrected, he isn't. It's Sergio Lemka in the number 9 Mercedes, currently in 21st place. He's the highest of the drivers who've made a pit stop so far, as Marco Badowski comes in for his first pit stop. Reitzma heading down the pit straight in the big GTR. A bit of understeer there. Didn't want to look as if it wanted to really turn into the first part of the Variante del Parco. Whether that's setup, tyre wear, tyre pressures causing that remains to be seen. Got Konstantinov and Mizhevsky both in the pits, as well as Badalski. Meanwhile, Sam Kruger has got the big red grille of Nathaniel Shirley's BMW right in front of him. Shirley just backing out a little bit there. They head down through this section of track now through Cavone. Now we're looking at Damien Lowe in the Mercedes. He heads through the Varante della Parco. 24th place at the moment. Debug and Tarantino are actually currently the only two drivers to have made both of their pit stops. Doing so very early on indeed. Hugo Gomez in 7th place at the moment. And doing very well indeed as he comes into the pits now for his first pit stop, Toby Atkinson we're on board with in the 112 Nissan GTR. The road-going version of the GTR has been in production since late 2007, early 2008, if I remember correctly, so it's rather venerable compared to some of the other cars in the field. Well, maybe with the exception of the big Jaguar G3, which was campaigned in real life by Emil Fry Racing. Now looking at Martin Schaefer in 9th place at the moment. Tribeck 10th, Atkinson 8th. Freeway battle going on here actually as they head up towards the Curva Tremonto. Schaefer not quite close enough on the brakes there, excuse me, and all three of them appearing to get a fairly good run out of the corner. And coming through now towards this really tricky braking zone. You're braking, turning, and trying not to spin the car. And then you've got another really short braking zone there, actually, into the Curva del Caro. So, very, very difficult section of track from what I have experienced, indeed, as they come through the final corner now. Dahlgren is in the pits in the Audi, and so is Martin Schaefer. So that means that Tribeck and Dahlgren have both gained a couple of positions there. Both cars coming to a stop in the pits. Haven't so far seen anyone accrue a penalty yet for the dreaded pit lane speeding, which is usually a stop and go plus 30 seconds. Never ideal at any track, especially Spa, where the pit lane being as long as it is. But Misano, it's not as bad, I think it's fair to say, because the pit exit does take out quite a lot, if not most of, the first chicane. You actually rejoin just on the outside of turn 3 here, as Kostadinov comes into the pits again. Which is also why the pit exit line is as close as it is to the end of the pit lane, so you don't gain a massive advantage by running through the pits. It's quite similar to how it is at Silverstone in England, where the pit lane entrance takes out almost the entirety of Club Corner. So they have the speed limit line really early, comparatively speaking, in order to make sure that going into the pits does not count as an advantage. Mo Plate currently in 4th place at the moment as Atkinson comes into the pits in the Nissan. The Nissan team working very well together to try and make their way up through the field. Atkinson being the second of the Nissan drivers to come into the pits for their first pit stop. with Birch being the first. Potty and Crawford Brown both coming in as well. But the difference being they've already made a pit stop. Currently looking at Mad Al in the Aston Martin at the moment. Al still needing to make another pit stop compared to Xavier Eugenie behind him, who is yet to pit. But Al putting in a fantastic run so far. It currently 9th place at the moment and doing a very, very good job indeed. Crawford Brown currently in 22nd has just made his final pit stop. Currently just exited the pit lane now. So he will no doubt be pushing as hard as he can till the end of the race. Currently looking at Hugo Gomez now. Made one pit stop already. 14th place just behind Nathaniel Shirley. Does have Sergio Lemke right behind him, excuse me. So this could get very tasty indeed. Coming into the final corner. Currently on board with Eddie Warden at the moment in 2nd place here at Misano. Sergio Lemke's just come into the pits for his 2nd pit stop. And Eddie making good use of the fact he's starting on the front row of the grid. He's actually got right behind him Crawford Brown, who, of course, Eddie was sharing the Lexus with during the Spa Big Grid race in the iconic Top Gear inspired livery. Toby Atkinson here battling with Martin Schaefer. Schaefer gonna have to go around the outside though, and not quite able to get it done. He's gonna have another look there into Curva Tremonto and gets him Atkinson on the inside on the way in, but runs a little bit wide though, and Atkinson's able to try and actually cut back to reclaim the position. They're side by side now coming towards Cavone. Atkinson's on the inside. Schaefer, I don't think is going to be able to get the job done here. They come through this very tricky couple of corners here. Heading towards the penultimate corner now. Not an overtaking opportunity. It's just a small lift in a GT3 car. Neither driver heading towards the pits now through the final corner. Schaefer looks as if he's dropped back a little bit from Atkinson. Heading through turn 1 now into turn 2, turn 3. Both cars looking fairly good so far. Both drivers have pitted once already. Atkinson running a little bit wide, then that's enough for Schaefer to get through on the inside. Indeed it is. Means Schaefer has moved up into 16th place right before the the timing beam as well. So fantastic timing indeed there from Schaefer. Atkinson now down to 17th in the Nissan. It's got Dan Birch in another one of the Nissans right behind him. Though by the difference between them is currently about 3.5 seconds. So might take a little while for Dan to close up with the best one in the world. Reitzmer and Al are both coming in for their first pit stops of the race. Still a good few drivers yet to pit so far. It's still Alexander, Warden, Lacey. We're currently looking at, now we're looking at Jack Alexander is having to send it very, very firmly up the inside of one of the McLarens. Maybe that's Miziewski's car, I believe. Coming through the final corner now, the curve of Misano. And onto the pit straight. Jack has hardly put a wheel wrong all season in any series, and is doing a fantastic job indeed here, using the agility of the Porsche and also the fact it's rear engined, which means it's got a load of extra weight over the rear axle. So coming out of well, this section of the track here, for example, plenty of traction. Magnus Dahlgren making his final pit stop. Jack Alexander, Eddie Warden, James Lacey, Emo Plate, Sam Kruger, excuse me, Kozlowski, Trebek, Eugenie, and Hutchinson all yet to pit. So far, currently looking at Debug at the moment, battling with Jakob Tarantino. Debug in 24th place at the moment, as Hutchinson comes into the pits now as well. Debug doing a good job there, holding on to the position so far. Gomez coming in for his final pit stop as well. Heading now back with Jack Alexander, coming into the final corner now. Textbook example of how to drive it, currently on board with Nathaniel Shirley. Meanwhile, up into third gear, fourth now, and now we're cutting away back towards Debug and Tarantino. Battle for position here, and Gomez has been given a stop and go plus 30 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. So Gomez currently down in 19th place at the moment, is not going to be having a good result today. 30 seconds, having a quick look to see where that's going to put him. That's going to drop him down behind Lemke, Brown, Dahlgren, Debug, Tarantino, maybe Mad Al as well. It's going to drop him to maybe last or second to last. Neil was probably speaking too soon, admittedly, when I said, oh, we haven't had any penalties for speeding in the pit lane yet. And, well, yeah, that's may have gone out the window a wee bit. Simon Trebek coming in for his first pit stop at the moment. In fact, actually looking at the gaps between drivers, currently on board with Debug because he's battling with Tarantino. That's going to drop. Yeah, as a drive through for Tarantino for track limits there, as he decides to come and serve that penalty now. He went quite wide, I think, on the way into the penultimate corner while battling with Debug, and has been given a drive-through penalty as a result. So Gomez and Tarantino are going to drop way down the field. And Lemke's also got a drive-through penalty for track limits for good measure as well. There's Xavier Eugenie coming into the pits in the Jaguar. Big old Jag. And while this thing was racing, it had already been superseded by the F-Type on the production line. Currently looking at Eddie Warden now in second place. Still got a couple of seconds between himself and James Lacey. Crawford Brown there just behind him as well. There's one of the Mercedes in front of him. Can't quite make out who, unfortunately. Oh no, it's not Damien Lowe's car. Though Mercedes getting out of the way of Eddie and Crawford. Crawford Brown being in the Lexus just behind there. As Harry Hottie comes into pit, so does Jack Alexander for his first pit stop. So Eddie Warden, it might well end up taking the lead here, which indeed he does, due to Jack Alexander coming in for his first pit stop. Eddie and Crawford having a good old scrap there on track. There's Sam Kruger up into 4th place now, behind Mo Plate, James Lacey and Warden. There's Eddie just letting Crawford through there in the Lexus. You see James Lacey right behind them and Mo Plate. There's not a lot in it between the top 3. Alexander still in with the fastest lap of the race in 5th place at the moment. Dowski 6th, Shirley 7th, Chafer. So Dowski 7th, Shirley 8th, Chafer 9th, Birch 10th, excuse me. Coming towards Curvone now. Of course, Lexus being front engine does punch a slightly bigger hole in the air than what the Lamborghini does. So this could play into Eddie Warden's advantage somewhat. Zalski is in the pits from 7th in the Nissan. Question in the chat. What happens with Hugo Gomez, car number 14? Gomez received a stop and go penalty. 30-second stop and go for speeding in the pit lane during his second and final pit stop. Unfortunately, he's running rather well up until that point, keeping in touch with the likes of Nathaniel Shirley, so he would be well up there in the field had that not been the case. Now, just over halfway through the race here at Misano, so time, methinks, for a quick rundown through the field. It's Eddie Warden leading for Lamborghini ahead of James Lacey in the Porsche. Mo Plate is in 3rd place in the Ferrari ahead of Samuel Kruger for Mercedes. Then it's Jack Alexander, who has also pitted in the Porsche in 5th place ahead of Marco Badowski. Nathaniel Shirley in 7th ahead of Martin Chafer. Dan Birch and Bernd Reitzmer rounding out the top 10. Birch and Reitzmer both driving for Nissan, Chafer in the Ferrari. Damien Lowe is in 11th place for Mercedes ahead of Xavier Eugeni. Dominik Miziewski is in 13th ahead of Crawford Brown. Krzałowski 15th, Dahlgren 16th, Debug 17th, Lemke 18th, Hottie 19th, Mad Owl rounding out the top 20. Kostadinov in 21st, Hutchinson 22nd, Simon Trebek 23rd. And unfortunately, that's as far down as the timing totem is going at the moment. Currently on board with Marco Badowski in the Bentley, car number 45, and Charger said in the chat, he thought Gomez got a penalty. He did. I saw it come up on screen. Badowski battling away here. He's almost, battling away. He's almost in a little bit of kind of no man's land, effectively, is Marco at the moment. He's got Shirley 10 seconds or so, just under 10 seconds behind him. And Jack Alexander, we'll see in a sec when it comes up, is 17 or so seconds in front of him. So we'll just have to get the hammer down, get cracking, and try and get the lap times sorted out. Currently, quarter of an hour left in the pit window here. So a lot of drivers now making the decision to take an early pit stop here in this race. Xavier Eugeni's just coming in now for his second stop in the big Jaguar. Doing a cracking job so far to get the Jag that high up the field on a track which it really is not terribly well suited to, if we're being honest. Jaguar does tend to work better on tracks that don't really have terribly many corners, so Monza and the Mistral Straight both suiting the Jaguar considerably better than Misano. As the light fades here, Eugenie coming out of the pits quite soon, and Emo Plate also making his first pit stop of the race. Tragic Creation in the YouTube chat has said that he received a power cut on the second lap of the race. And yeah, that is... And he really likes Misano too. And oh, I'm sorry to hear about the power cut, mate. That is really, really bad luck. Remember, we had a couple of storms a few weeks back in the UK, and we had, I think it was the day before the Spa 9 hours, and the day after the Spa 9 hours, we had, I think, about 4 power cuts. And thankfully none on the race day itself. So I know the feeling. It is a right royal pain in the backside. Feel for you, mate. Harry Hottie in 19th place with Mad Al just behind you. You can see Mad Al's car there. The light's really starting to reflect on the tarmac now. It really is getting dark quite quickly here at Misano as Mijiewski makes his second and final pit stop. So, the race at Misano traditionally is actually held, the first race at least, is actually traditionally held at night. Emo Plate in for his first stop as well. The nighttime racing being quite common here as Reitzma has a big old moment. Can't quite see where that is, unfortunately. He did well to... Reitzma, actually, to his credit, did very well to keep that out of the barriers there. Because that could, at the end of that, it was that tricky braking zone I was on about, and we did a last season as Eddie Warden comes into the pits from the lead of the race. Emo has made his final pit stop as Nathaniel Shirley has also received a drive-through penalty as well. Presumably for track limits. I'm guessing that Sam Kruger is also coming into the pits as well. We actually had a race here last season where a driver lost it on the section of track where we just saw Reitzma having a big old moment and going into the gravel. Lost it when across the inside of the track trying to get the car stopped, and inadvertently got disqualified from the race as the game fought it, as he'd cut about 2 corners off. Although he was merely just simply trying to get the car hauled up and not take anyone else out, and unfortunately got disqualified for cutting the track in a big way. But Misano, traditionally one of the races being held at night under the floodlights. You can see the floodlights starting to come on now. The exhausts glowing red hot. The brake discs are starting to glow. From a photographer's perspective, it's absolutely brilliant time of the race. From a driver's perspective, it just makes everything so much harder. At this stage, you're just trying to see where your braking marker is and everything else, and not having natural daylight does make it quite a lot harder. See James Lacey in the lead of the race here in the number 997 Porsche. Yet to pit though. Still just under 10. There's about 8 minutes and just under 8 3/4 minutes to go now on the pit window. Reitzmer, Kozłowski, Shirley, Lowe, Birch, Chafer, Kruger, Badowski, Warden, and Alexander all yet to make their final pit stops. James Lacey in the lead of the race is Sam Kruger, speaker which has decided to come in for his final pit stop. Now, Lacey has 17 seconds on Alexander. So, this could get very, very tasty indeed, depending on the timing of the pit stops. See where the floodlights are on the track, where a bit lighter. Fourth gear, you could see James having to just slightly correct the car as the back end started to come around a little bit through that very tricky right-hander. James Lacey coming in for his first pit stop of the race now. Going to be crucial as to whether Jack Alexander can close up some more time and actually reclaim the lead of the race. So the right-hander is the one just before the curve at El Caro. So, very tricky corner indeed. There's Nathaniel Shirley in the BMW, also in the pits. Serving his penalty. There's Lacey up on the jacks, back off the jacks. Splash of fuel, maybe. And coming down the pit exit now. He's currently showing as being in second place at the moment, which means that Jack Alexander has reclaimed the lead of the race. Shirley floors it coming out the pits now. Lacey now down to fourth behind Warden and Badowski. Meanwhile, looking at Dan Birch trying to catch MO plates. But he's also got Samuel Kruger in the Mercedes right behind him there. Coming through here into Curva del Caro now. Kruger really closing up on the brakes in the big Mercedes. Both very, very similar cars, these big front engine GT cars. As Birch comes into the pits now to make his final pit stop. Kruger, as you can see by the green next to his car number, has already made his final stop. It's really getting dark here at Misano now. Incredibly dark indeed. There's Hugo Gomez in car number 14. He's currently in 25th place in a bit of a Nissan sandwich at the moment. Wait and see which order the Nissans are in. Can't quite tell, unfortunately. Currently showing as being down in 25th place at the moment. Par 14 now. Fortunately, the camera's not showing which Nissan that is. That's the 121 in front, which is Reitzmer, which means the one behind. And I couldn't quite make out who was behind, unfortunately. Currently looking at Billy Hutchinson in 22nd place at the moment. He's got Trebek right behind him and Mijewski right in front of him. As Martin Chafer comes into the pits from 5th place. Shout out to Damien Lowe in 9th place at the moment, as Hutchinson loses the position there to Trebek. Trebek going to have to try and go around the outside though here. And they both go wide, Mijewski and Trebek. This might let Hutchinson have another look back. Not quite, as next turns in on the inside. Back to Gomez in 25th place at the moment in the 14 BMW. Kwiatkowski and Lowe and Chafer all in the pits at the moment. Their final pit stops. Heading through the opening sequence of corners here now. And on to the back straights. That's Reitzmer in front. Then Gomez. Craning my neck to try and actually get a look here. James Lacey is in the pits as well, currently third place. So Warden and Badowski and Reitzmer all yet to make their final pit stops at the moment. Warden is currently showing as having a 1.5 second lead over Badowski. Currently on board with Badowski now as he heads hard on the brakes into Curva Quasia. Good exit out of here. Lacey has just dropped behind Alexander. Still looking like it might be a Porsche 1-2. There's Bernd Reitzmer in 8th place. At the moment, he does still have a pit stop to make, and he comes in now for his final pit stop of the race. Gonna drop him down behind Dahlgren and Debug and Birch. Maybe Lemke as well. There's Xavier Eugenie in 15th place, right on the back of the Mercedes of Damien Lowe in 14th. Of course, Damien being in Singapore, we are already into the, we are well into the early hours of Wednesday morning for him at the moment. Eugenie trying to wrestle the big Jaguar around this opening section of the lap. And trying to get the Jaguar around here is immensely difficult. Indeed, it's not the best handling car, I think it's fair to say, in the game. As Badowski is in the pits right now, and presumably Eddie Warden is as well. And Eddie Warden has got a stop and go plus 30. Second place at the moment, just 8 and a bit minutes left in the race. He doesn't have to come in during the hit window. He's got Badowski right behind him. I wonder if Badowski actually knows that Eddie does have a penalty and that it's not going to be a good idea to try and put too much effort into getting past him. And the chief summing up everyone's thoughts, no doubt Eddie Warden's thoughts as well, by saying stop and go 30, oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. And if anyone outside of the UK gets the reference, then yep, that will be quite something. So, Damien Lowe still with Xavier Eugenie right behind him. Xavier doing a very, very commendable job in that big Jaguar. It's not the best car in the world, and Damien going very wide there. That's going to be enough to let Kwiatkowski maybe have a little look. Damien on the inside though, able to hold on to the position. And yeah, Chief's right, speeding in pits gets you a stop and go 30. Track limits is a drive-through penalty, which we've seen a few of so far earlier on in the race as well. Charger also summing up everyone else's reaction and not just Eddie Warden's. Not that I'm going to be repeating that on the broadcast, as Harry Hottie has a bit of a moment there in the Lamborghini. Coming through the last few corners now. The oh dear reference earlier on, for anyone who was wondering, was of course from the Chuckle Brothers. Hottie still very close to Konstantinov, battle for 18th place, and the Nissan of Reitzman in the background, and by extension of that, the Bentley of Simon Trebek. This is all for position here. Hottie goes very wide though, very deep on the brakes, and that's enough to let Reitzman through. I think he's going to let Trebek through as well, which he doesn't. Oh, and he's had a big off there, doing the opposite of what happened to Vantor. Vantor went off on the other side of the track. One of the Porsches getting well out of the way there as well. I think Trebek has waited up somewhere. See one of the McLarens in the back, but I think that's Mijewski. Eddie Warden, I should add, is in the pits at the moment, serving his stop and go penalty, excuse me. Currently down in 7th. No doubt probably shouting one or two expletives at the moment. I think it's fair to say Hottie down in 22nd now, as Hutchinson was able to get past amongst the melee. The McLaren behind Hottie is Mijewski. That is for position. There's Xavier Eugeni in 13th place. He's got Kozłowski right behind him, and also Schaefer as well. Eugeni having to try and somehow get the Jaguar around here with two vastly nimbler cars behind him. I mean, the Nissan GTR isn't exactly the last word in agility, but compared to the Jaguar, it is, and this is actually giving Schaefer a chance to have a right old go at Kozłowski for 14th place. Batting away, I should add, Eddie Warden is out of the pits and only a few seconds behind this battle. Here. There's Eugeni, 13th. Schaefer's just got past Kozłowski, in fact, for 14th place. Chief in the YouTube chat can confirm he is indeed saying some expletives towards the hit pit lane button. Yeah, to be fair, I would be doing the same as well myself. Personally speaking, Eugeni pulling away a bit from the Ferrari there, but that's because we're on one of the few bits of Misano that are relatively not that twisty. And Fussy's able to pull away, but Schaefer's going to have a go up the inside at the Curva del Caro, maybe get a run on the exit, which, although Eugeni is holding on very stoutly indeed. Heading into the Curva Misano now. Cracking entertainment, this battle between two cars which could not be any more different if you tried. A car that's fantastically nimble in the corners, and a car that's basically a rocket ship in a straight line, and one where you're kind of holding on for dear life, frankly. I should add the Jaguar had no input from Jaguar themselves. It was built and developed in-house by Emil Fry Racing, who are going to be running some works Lamborghinis. Well, you're not allowed works teams in GT3, but you know what I'm on about. As Schaefer being held up is now having to defend a bit from Kozłowski. Still trying to find a way past Xavier Eugeni. It's a cracking entertainment, this, between the three of them. Schaefer is going to send it up the inside, though, at the Curva Tremonto. Is he going to get the position? Yes, he is. Well, he's now got to try and hold on down the straight. Eugeni was defending like crazy there. Chief in the YouTube chat saying, placing it in all the right places, great defense. It was indeed, and oh, big old moment there in the background between Eugeni and Kozłowski. Kozłowski really having to throw on the opposite lock there to try and get the thing stopped. and keep it pointing in the right direction. Of course, with defending like that, there's every chance that Eugenie's going to be getting a phone call from Frank Lampard or Jesse Marsh to come and maybe, if not play for, coach Everton or Leeds United in the English Premier League. Both clubs with absolutely fantastically terrible defences at the moment. The less said about the defences from both of them, the better. I think it's fair to say. Here's Kozłowski now battling Eugenie. Of course, if this, from what you saw earlier, is anything to go by, it's one thing to get onto the back of the Jaguar. It's another thing entirely trying to actually find a way past it. Kozłowski, though, is going to have a look up the inside into Curva Kwashia and manages to get past the big Jaguar on the brakes. Damien Lowe there in the background. You can see the Rutronic Porsche of Jack Alexander there as well, the race leader. Alexander, I think at this point, is just wanting to, I think, has enough in hand to be able to run the clock down, so to speak, to use another footballing analogy. Heading into Curva del Carro once more. Chief absolutely spot on there. Great to see racing that close between three of them without a punt in sight. Absolutely indeed. I'm still of the view, if you want to go punting, go to Cambridge University. It's another reference. Slightly niche UK reference. Meanwhile, the checkered flag is out, and it's going to be Jack Alexander taking the win here for Porsche. James Lacey is going to... We've already got Damien Lowe, Mads Au, Simon Trebek, Kostadinov and Reitzmer closing out the top 20, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th and 20th. James Lacey is in third place at the moment. Why is the auto director making us look at Kozłowski? As Lacey crosses the line. There's Badowski in second place. Showing us third on there for some reason. Oh no, so he's definitely showing second place now. The auto director closing back onto Badowski. Kozłowski doing a good job indeed. Kruger showing as being in third or fifth, depending on which screen you're looking at. I'm looking at the timing thing on the left-hand side where it's Alexander, Badowski, Lacey, Plate, Kruger, Brown, Dahlgren, Debug, Birch, Shirley, rounding out the top 10. Lemke 11th, Warden 12th, Schaefer 13th, Kozłowski 14th, Eugenie holding on for 15th there at the end. Low 16th, Al, Trebek, Kostadinov, Reitzman rounding out the top 20. Then Jakub Tarantino, Hugo Gomez in 22nd place. Giorgio Minja in 23rd as well. As Jack Alexander makes it 3 wins from 3 starts this evening. Crawford Brown getting some good points there to hold on to second place in the standings. Sam Kruger looking like he's going to be moving up into third place as well. Good result from Marco Badowski. He'll be moving further up into the top 10 as well. As for the team standings, it's been a fantastic result for Porsche. So no doubt they'll be moving well up the field. And in fact, they might even be able to leapfrog Audi and Nissan, with it being a 1-3 for Porsche tonight. Although, then again, this is me attempting to do mathematics. And the last time I really had to do mathematics was in my GCSE exams, which, worryingly, were a decade ago. So you might want to take this with a pinch of salt, so to speak. Then again, with journalists, most of the time it's a case of 2 + 2 = 5. So I will stick to doing the talking for now. Well, that was another fantastic race in the RWB International Constructors Championship. Got plenty more to come this week as well. We've got the Wednesday night Wreckfest special coming up. We've also got the Pro Rookie weekly race as well on Thursday night. And then on Friday, we've got the GT1 League on Automobilista 2, driving some of the big GT1 monsters from the back when I was a very, very wee lad indeed in the tail end of the 1990s. And then on Saturday night, we have the Formula RWB series in the Tatus Formula 4 car on Race Room. Going to be another cracking event to look forward to. My thanks to Nate Newcomer for setting up the stream this evening. I have been Rob Lomas, and as always, it's bye for now.